Yo, welcome back, guys. As promised, I'm here to deliver on the Dynamax suspect test video. So, as I mentioned earlier in my update video, Gen 8 is suspecting Dynamax for random battles. So, why this is important is because traditionally, random battles have followed the Ubers tier when it comes to ruling. So, if something was allowed in Ubers, you'd find it in random battles, i.e., of course, getting something like a Reshiram or a Mewtwo in a random battle. So this is a bit interesting because Dynamax has been banned in pretty much every tier that isn't Ubers. Ubers actually just did a complex ban on it. So now Random Battle is trying to decide whether or not they want to do anything with it. So I'll keep this brief. I'm going to read bits and pieces of this. I want to look at a couple community posts, get an idea of what people think about it. And I'm also going to voice a little bit of my opinion. So right here, you'll see Random Battles has always been based on the standard Smogon tiers, as I mentioned with the Ubers. Since Dynamax is such a large part of Gen 8 and Random Battle itself, it's a pretty big step to ban it, and we would like to leave that decision to the community. The result of this suspect test will guide the future of Gen 8 Random Battle. Should Dynamax be banned, we will continue to follow standard tiers, and the level of Pokemon will become an accurate representation of their competitive ability. So they're saying that the move pool, items, levels, things like that are going to be changed to take into account a Dynamax or a non-Dynamax metagame. So they said here, debate is wonderful, which you're going to be looking at that. And if you want to contribute to this, all you have to do is make an alt with this format. You'll see RBDS and then your name. And you're required to do at least 60 games, and you have to have a GXE of 80%. So you'll see here, if you go to the ladder, you can see your ranking, your ELO, and you'll see this category here is your GXE. It's basically like predicting the odds you have of beating any random opponent. So this will be running until April 16th. I'm a little bit late to this, but you still got 5 days if you're interested in it. And then, like I said, there were a couple posts that I wanted to look at. So Dynamax has been pretty controversial. It's a really big part of doubles in Pokemon, and I'm definitely a fan of it there. But in singles, it's kind of a mess. We haven't really been all in agreement on how we want to address it. I mean, obviously we've banned it, but people are still kind of, up in the air on it. So anyhow, the first post I wanted to look at was from Sylveon Used Calm Mind. So they talk about it here. They say, Dynamax brings Pokemon to life that are normally not very useful offensively. For example, Noctowl or even Steelix. Without Dynamax, Dragon Dance on Steelix will probably be removed, and Steelix will go back to being a defensive set with Stealth Rocks, because even after one Dragon Dance, you don't have enough speed to outspeed most of your counters, and you don't have the necessary bulk to live one attack from these mons. Noctowl will go back to becoming a defensive defogger, because it can't boost its speed with max airstream anymore. I personally like that these Pokemon who are in fact PU or NU can even be more threatening than a Kyurem or Melmetal who are in the Ubers tier. And then they say, lastly, I'd like to refer to RBTT and how Dynamax has affected the tour overall. They think that Dynamax had a positive influence on RBTT because you didn't have to rely on matchup entirely. If one player used his Dynamax more effectively than the other, he could even win the game, despite having a bad matchup. That adds more fun and possibilities overall to the game. So I see where they're coming from on this point. Random Battle can definitely be very volatile when it comes to matchups. So having Dynamax there as a sort of tool to play around with can definitely add a little bit more depth to the game. Because a lot of times if you've got like a whole team of Ubers versus a whole team of like NUs, PUs, you're kind of out of luck. So I definitely hear where they're coming from on this. It's going to add some depth. It's going to allow some Pokemon that normally don't shine to shine. And I think that's a good thing. We don't want, any metagame, whether it's random or not, to become too stale. So I liked this post because they addressed the side of let's keep Dynamax. The next one I wanted to take a look at is a perspective that I personally agree with a lot. And it's from the user Pelly here. They say, as someone who has extensive experience in both Gen 7 and Gen 8 random battles, they say that they flipped back and forth on Dynamax, while random battles is a casual tier for most. Anyone that has seen the top of the ladder can tell you that it is much less of a casual thing once you really get into it. That's absolutely true. There's a core group of people you see over and over again on the top of the ladder, and much of these games come down to 1 who is forced to Dynamax first before the potential counter is revealed, or 2, having the counter in the back when the opposition is forced into a Dmax position. I really like how they start off addressing this point because Random Battle is so much different from, say, a standard OU game or UU game in that there's no team preview, right? So a lot of times you can set up a game plan for yourself in an OU or UU game because you know what they have, you know what you have, and you can address your win cons and what's important and what's not. In Random Battles, you kind of don't know, right? Because if they play their team intelligently and they don't reveal too much of it, they've got the upper hand. So you might think you're set to sweep with, you know, your Ninjask or whatever, and then they just have, you know, Copperajah in the back or, you know, something like that, right? And that can make it very hard to determine when do you want to Dynamax, right? You might pull the trigger thinking that you've secured the game, but you haven't, or vice versa, you know? Right here, I really like this point too. Random battles are not random. The better player wins a good majority of the time, just as much as most tiers. Yes, you will have the games where you are boned by random teams, but for the most part, there's always a path to victory. I definitely agree with this. I have won a lot of games at the top of the ladder with bad teams, and I've also, you know, lost when they have a better team. But really, like, they're so right about this, where the better player usually wins. And they make a super good point about this. Where is it here? Their TLDR is that GXE is significantly lower this gen than last gen, which means that good players are winning less. And I'll even show that here. So we've got the Gen 8 random battle ladder, right? And I've got an all. I was actually just playing last night for Gen 7. So you see, most of these are averaging around like mid 80%. And this is the very top of the ladder. So if we pull up the Gen 7 random battle ladder, you're actually going to see that the GXE is much higher there. We got 87. As we go down, there's a couple higher ones. Like we've got, where is it? At least I know my account had a pretty high GXE. I don't know about these guys. We've got 84 there, 86.2. Perhaps Gen 7 was not the best example. But I know one for sure that's going to have higher GXE. That should be Gen 3. I'm thinking of a particular individual. Yeah, we've got 85, 86, 85, 89. There's gang, yep. The Gen 3 beast. 88.2, 88.2. So it might not be very evident at face value, but based on how thorough this person was in their analysis, I have every reason to believe that they're right. And I've even felt it too. Like when I was laddering for this suspect, I kind of felt like I wasn't winning as much as I should have. And, you know, maybe that's my unfamiliarity with just how Dynamax works in general, or when I shouldn't use it. But there wasn't that factor in like Gen 6 or Gen 7 or Gen 5 or any of these past gens. So their thought here is that we should ban Dmax because the better players are not winning as much. And from a competitive standpoint, that's very logical. That makes perfect sense to me. So I like the post after it too, because I feel like some people kind of maybe miss the point of the suspect, or maybe they're not reading into it correctly. So right here it says, I think the question should be asking, should Dynamax be allowed in Random-Bats even though it's broken and uncompetitive? This is where the arguments about whether or not Dynamaxing is fun or not, as well as whether there's any merit in playing Dynamax less Gen 8 Random-Bats as opposed to Gen 7 actually have some sway. Unlike with the rest of the singles formats, is intended to be a bit more fun and casual than other tiers. So many Dynamax is worth keeping around just to keep things interesting despite its uncompetitiveness. And right here they say, I just don't see the point in requiring a suspect test and a high elo to vote on Dynamax it again. If we want Random-Bats as competitive as possible, Dynamax needs the banhammer, for all the reasons that have been stated in this thread and many others since the release of Sword and Shield. If we're more interested in having an interesting, unique meta, why do only top level players get to choose? And they say here, you know, I think this meta is a lot less fun than previous gens. And while I agree with some of this, it also kind of misses the point. when it comes to like the community and what we want to do with it. Again, because it follows Uber's, right? So Uber's just made a decision on Dynamax. They have a complex ban system with which I haven't familiarized myself, but I'm pretty sure it's something like some Pokemon can Gigantamax or Dynamax, and then like most of the Ubers can't. Don't quote me on that. So I do understand this part where they're saying like, you know, why do we need a high elo to vote? I mean, that's always been how Smogon has handled these suspect tests. And Immortal actually addresses that here. They actually address this exact quote here. And they say, while I'm speaking about my experience, I believe that Dynamax has a very steep learning curve. We're about 4 to 5 months into the generation, and only now I can say I've learned how to effectively manage Dynamax. And this post here and Sylveon's are the reasons why I'm still kind of hesitating on my decision. Prior to this, I was very, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just ban Dynamax. Now I'm a little bit more on the fence. I'm still a little bit more towards banning it, but I am seeing why people are wanting to keep it. And, you know, they're definitely right. Like, Immortal says, where is it here? Isn't just clicking a button, but about understanding when is the most optimal time to use it, similar to how you would set up the conditions for a sweeper in standard tiers. So it's kind of a tough choice here. I feel like it's going to get banned, but again, I definitely understand. I want to show both sides of the argument here. I definitely see why people would want to keep it, and I agree too. You know, it's early into the meta. Like back in Gen 7, I'm almost certain there were a lot of people that like wanted to ban Z moves or just thought it was uncompetitive. But with time, we saw that it was actually like a pretty healthy thing. Like it allowed Pokemon to shine that normally couldn't shine. And I think that Dynamax is similar to that, but I just think it's a little bit more extreme, personally. I think it's a little too extreme, especially in the singles format, which is why I'm leaning a little bit more towards ban. But, you know, let me know what you guys are thinking about this. Like I said, the suspect ends on the 16th, so you've got 5 days if you want to go get Reqs for that. I feel like it's going to be a very close vote. I feel like this will be one of the closest votes that we've had. So I'm looking forward to see what happens with it. Whatever way it goes, I'm still going to play random battles just because I really enjoy it. It's probably my favorite format. But, you know, only time will tell. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Maybe later today I'll be doing a video on the RBTT and my involvement in that. That was the Random Battle Team Tour. And if not today, then I'll definitely have that up tomorrow. I'll be taking a look at what the Random Battle Team Tour was, how do you get involved in it, and then I'll also be analyzing my very first ever tour set that I played, best of 3 format, and we'll go from there. So hope you guys are having a nice weekend, and I'll see you next time. Peace.